Today we're going to be looking at a pair of mid-sized reversible seat four-wheel swivel wheel models, the Bugaboo Fox 2 and the Joolz Day Plus. We've had a few requests to compare these models, which I believe to be because, from first look, they seem very similar, not just in terms of general size and shape, but also in the particulars of how they're put together, such as the use of a single rigid frame for fixing both the seat and bassinet. And yet, perhaps strangely, engineering-wise, they are almost exact opposites. So let's have a look then and examine the similarities and differences between them in relation to comfort, functionality, performance, and mechanics, as well as which variations in lifestyle might make one a better choice over the other. We'll start off with the Fox 2. The Fox 2 clocks in at roughly 10 kilos, at least in its lightest configuration, and folds down to 47 by 60 by 90 centimeters, with the seat attached. It can take 22 kilos in the seat and 10 kilos in its underslung shopping basket. The dimensions of the Fox 2's seat are pretty standard size-wise for a mid-sized model, and will comfortably accommodate a child up until around 3.5 years old or so, before beginning to feel a tad cramped. Both the seat and bassinet are included with purchase, and both are attachable to the same frame, though it's probably worth noting that shifting between the two takes a bit of work. The textiles, harness, padding, and overall feel of the seat are pretty standard for Bugaboo, which means relatively luxurious and with an attention to small details aimed at making your use of the model easier. As far as the canopy is concerned, the Fox 2 provides excellent sun coverage thanks to an extra extendable portion zipped into the rear of the canopy. When it comes to general functionality and ease of use, a lot of people find that the Fox 2 takes a bit of getting used to. The model has a lot of functions, designed with the idea of making your life easier, but in order to get the most out of it, it's important to know how Bugaboo pictures you using it, especially when it comes to the fold. Mechanically, the Fox 2's folding mechanism is the model's Achilles heel, a result of the burden of multifunctionality that the mechanism is expected to carry out, including a one-piece standing fold, with the seat either forward or reversed, as well as with the bassinet, a two-wheel mode, and most importantly, the ability to unlock the standing fold from a second set of activation dials, just so that you don't have to bend over. This last ability, in my opinion, is not worth the headaches it brings to figuring out the model, let alone the potential for long-term problems resulting from the internal complexity needed to pull it off. Yet nonetheless, to my mind, it's also the Fox's most defining characteristic, and is something you'll need to get comfortable with if you decide to go for the model. As far as longevity is concerned, Fox models do have the potential for developing a number of problems related to this hyper-complexity of internal mechanisms, as we've already personally seen with Fox 1 repairs. But the Fox 2's overall longevity is also affected by a second factor, which is Bugaboo's emphasis on lightweight materials, meaning a lot of plastic. Taken together, these two design choices make the Fox 2 a precision instrument, intelligently designed for maximum functionality, but also consisting of somewhat fragile components intended to work in highly symmetrical harmony. The problem down the line, then, is that in the real world, with weight and bumpy terrain and sometimes less than sufficiently careful operators, all working to loosen up that symmetry, the model can get out of alignment, or even break. That being said, it's not exactly fair to just outright judge the Fox 2 as having poor mechanical longevity. That's sort of up to you and how you use it. Again, it's best to view it as a precision instrument. Treat it carefully, lubricate its mechanisms with silicone spray, clean sand and grit out of the wheel housings, and avoid forcing or overloading it, and there's no reason to assume it won't last for a sufficiently long time. Okay, let's finish off with the Fox 2 by taking a look at my favorite characteristic of the model, which is how it drives. And to my mind, despite the somewhat fragile build of the chassis, the Fox 2 is a monster when it comes to terrain capability, at least in comparison with other mid-sized four-wheel swivel wheel models. There are a few reasons for this, but the most important are a combination of much larger than average front wheels, multi-layered suspension, and what Bugaboo refers to as power steering, which is a combination of the raised ridge that runs down the center of the Fox 2's tires and an overall angle of the chassis which is narrow at the handle but widens out at the wheels. The Fox 2 won't handle all off-road conditions, of course, but it will tolerate more than most comparable models, being even capable of negotiating rougher terrain like roots and rocks for limited periods of time. Okay then, let's move on and check out the Day Plus. The Day Plus clocks in at 12.5 kilos and folds down to 95 by 58 by 42 centimeters, with the seat attached. It can take up to 22 kilos in the seat and 5 kilos in the underslung shopping basket. In comparison with the Fox 2 then, the Day Plus is a tad heavier, but also folds a little smaller. As far as the seat is concerned, the Day Plus is slightly larger in its proportions than the Fox 2, though this is only a matter of a few centimeters. Contrary to what it may seem from the pictures, the telescopically extendable lower portion of the seat frame does not really add length to the seat, though it does allow the frame to contract smaller, which aids with storage. When it comes to the canopy, the Day Plus has a sun flap, but not an extra extendable section, and as a result is somewhat weaker regarding sun coverage than the Fox 2, though it's still quite adequate in my opinion. With regards to materials, the Day Plus's textiles match the quality of the Fox 2, but the composite material used for the baseboards is a bit weaker than the Fox 2's plastic components. Removing the textiles to swap from the bassinet to the seat and vice versa, however, is a good deal easier on the Day Plus than on the Fox 2. As a last note on the seat, the frame on the Day Plus sits a tiny bit higher than on the Fox 2. It's again just a matter of a few centimeters, but still, it's always a nice thing in my opinion when your child is higher up, both for the interaction as well as in how this contributes to making the shopping basket more accessible. As far as parent comfort and ease of use are concerned, the Day Plus is far easier and more immediately intuitive to use than the Fox 2, as well as feeling a lot sturdier in your hands, in particular when it comes to folding. That being said though, there are also fewer folding options, and the model won't fold down into a single piece either with the seat attached in the reverse position or with the bassinet. Additionally, in the interest of mechanical simplicity, the Day Plus has not been built to actually lock into folded form, which, while I applaud the decision from a longevity standpoint, might be a tad fiddly for people not tending to make use of the standing fold. When looking at longevity, the Day Plus is built in a significantly sturdier manner than the Fox 2, due to better horizontal support, a greater use of metal as opposed to plastic, fewer connection points between chassis elements, and significantly simpler and sturdier internal mechanisms, with far fewer components. There's really no contest here. Longevity is what the Day Plus is built for, what most Joolz models are built for. That's why they offer a lifetime guarantee. And in contrast to the Fox 2, which again is arguably built more for the purpose of maximizing functionality, there are very few extras on the model. With the exception of the LED lights, the Day Plus is built to give you only those functions that you really need, avoiding anything else as not being worth their potential for problems in the long run. And there's another, sneakier contributing factor to the Day Plus's better longevity as well, related to driving, being design characteristics which tend to keep the model away from rougher environments altogether. You see, despite the model's greater weight and relatively similar size in comparison to the Fox 2, the size of the front wheels as well as somewhat weaker suspension mean that the Day Plus will be difficult to drive outside of urban and light suburban terrain. It'll handle gravel and smoother park terrain just fine, as well as cobblestones if you live in an older European city. Though note here that not all cobblestones are equal, and if it's particularly rough where you live and a continuous part of your environment, then the Day Plus may not be quite right for you. That being said, it's important to note that the Day Plus's lesser terrain capabilities are not the result of the build quality of the wheels or how they connect to the chassis, but simply the size, which will make negotiating rougher paths a bit too difficult for comfort. So, how to judge between these two models then? I would say that this comes down very much to what you want out of your stroller. Despite being a bit more fiddly and fragile, the Fox 2 actually covers a greater number of specific concerns and uses, both with regards to folding, with its one-piece fold in all possible configurations, as well as with its terrain capabilities, which greatly expand the number of places you can drive comfortably. The Day Plus, by contrast, is much sturdier, but also more specific, built as a regular use all-day stroller for more or less exclusively smoother environments. In any case, we hope you found this video interesting, and if you did, we ask that you subscribe, as it helps us to continue making videos in the future. In addition, if you are currently shopping for a stroller, we have a buyer's guide on our Patreon page, which lists a wide range of models that we recommend, with a lot of technical and lifestyle-related information. You can find it by following the link in the description. Thank you.